The notary's hands were shaking. I noticed that before anything else, before the stack of documents on the conference table, before my brother's new haircut, before the way my mother was gripping her purse strap like it was the only solid thing in the room, the notary, a small man with wire-rimmed glasses and a short-sleeved shirt that had seen better days, kept clicking and unclicking his pen. He wouldn't look at me directly. He'd glance, then look away, the way people do when they know they're part of something they'd rather not be. My brother was sitting to my mother's left. He'd gotten a haircut recently, clean fade, new jacket. He looked like a man who already knew how the meeting was going to end. I sat down across from them. I set my bag on the floor. I folded my hands on the table. The notary cleared his throat. He said my parents had finalized their estate documents. He said the house, the savings account, the joint investment portfolio, all of it was being transferred into a family trust. He said the sole beneficiary of that trust, upon my parents' passing or at their discretion, was my brother, Elliot. He slid the document toward me. I looked at it. I looked at my name, which appeared exactly once in the section labeled Non-Beneficiary Parties. There was a line for my signature. It was a line that said, I have been informed. I acknowledge this document. I have no claim. My mother finally looked up. Her eyes were careful. She said, Sweetheart, you've always been the independent one. You don't need this the way he does. I didn't say anything. I picked up the pen the notary offered me. I signed my name. I put the pen down. My brother exhaled. I heard it across the table. It was the exhale of a man who had been holding his breath. I picked up my bag. I said thank you to the notary. I nodded at my parents. I walked out. Elliot caught up to me in the parking lot. He called my name twice before I stopped. I turned around. He had his hands in his jacket pockets, rocking slightly on his heels. He said, Hey, no hard feelings, right? You know how it is. I looked at him for a long moment. I said, Of course not. Then I got in my car. I drove home to my apartment, and I sat at my kitchen table in the dark, and I thought about a Tuesday afternoon 11 years ago, when my father handed me a piece of paper with a 12-digit number on it and said, You're the one I trust with this. My name is Iris. I'm 32 years old. I live in Columbus, Ohio, in a 2-bedroom apartment I've rented for 4 years. The second bedroom is my office. I'm a licensed CPA, a certified public accountant. I do tax work, estate planning, financial compliance. I've built a career on understanding exactly where money goes and exactly who has the right to move it. Growing up, I was the one who got straight A's while my brother got extensions on his homework. I was sitting at work eating a sad granola bar for lunch. My mother said, he just needs some motivation. I was the one who applied for merit scholarships and won 2 of them. I was sitting at work eating a sad granola bar for lunch. Why was sad granola bar for lunch? Then his first car loan, then the lease on his apartment when he was 26 and getting on his feet. I was never angry about it exactly. That's the thing I want to be honest about. I was sad. I was confused. The way you're confused when the rules you're playing by don't seem to apply to everyone at the table. But I kept playing. I kept working. I got my CPA license. I got a good job at a mid-sized firm. I built something. Elliot built things too. He built a financial consulting business that lasted 8 months before the client stopped calling. He built a partnership with a friend that dissolved when the money ran out, and when it did, my parents quietly transferred $12,000 into his account to settle what he owed. He built a lifestyle, nice apartment, nice car, nice habits, on a budget that never quite matched his income. And every time the math didn't add up, my parents made up the difference. I never said anything. That was my rule. I had built a life where I didn't need them to do anything for me, which meant I felt I had no standing to comment on what they did for him. That was the bargain I'd made with myself. I kept it right up until the notary's hands started shaking. I should have seen it coming. There were signs. A comment my mother made at Easter. We've been doing some restructuring, just making sure everyone's protected. The way she said everyone in a tone that meant Elliot, A phone call with my father in February where he seemed tired in a way that wasn't physical, where he said, "Your mother has it handled." When I asked about their retirement savings, and the way he said it, flat and resigned, made me feel something cold in the back of my throat. My father had always been the quieter one. Not warm exactly, but fair. He was the one who taught me to balance a checkbook when I was 12. He was the one who sat with me when I was studying for the CPA exam and brought me coffee without being asked. He never praised me loudly. That wasn't his way, but he noticed things. He noticed when I got promoted. He asked questions about my clients, remembered what I told him about cases without me having to repeat myself. That meant something to me. It still does. It was my father who, when I was home for Thanksgiving 8 years ago, called me into his office after dinner. He'd just gotten a new laptop and couldn't figure out the bank's online portal. He was frustrated in the specific way older men get frustrated with technology. Not at the machine, but at themselves for not already knowing. I pulled up a chair. We spent an hour on it. I set up his login credentials, linked the checking account, the savings, the investment account he'd been managing through a broker for 20 years. I created a password, complex with a capital letter and a symbol and a number, the kind he'd never have chosen himself. He wrote it down on a notepad, then he tore the sheet off and handed it to me. "You keep a copy," he said, "in case something happens. You're the one who know what to do." I kept the paper. I put it in the small fireproof lockbox I keep in my closet, with my passport and my lease and the original copy of my CPA certificate. I didn't think about it again for 8 years, until I was sitting at my kitchen table after that notary meeting in the dark and I remembered I didn't do anything right away. I want to be clear about that. I am a financial professional. I understand fiduciary responsibility. I understand what it means to access an account you're authorized to access versus what it means to misuse that access. I thought about it for 3 days. I called a lawyer friend not to ask her to do anything, just to understand where the lines were. She told me that if my father had given me his login credentials and listed me as an authorized user on the account, I had legal standing to view the account activity. I was not a stranger. I was sitting at work, eating a sad Ranirit Ismari trusted. On the fortnight, I opened my laptop. I went to the bank's website. My hands didn't shake. I typed in the username. I typed in the password from the paper I'd kept for 8 years. Access granted. I sat there for a moment just looking at the dashboard. The accounts were all there. Checking, savings, the investment portfolio, and next to the investment portfolio, a new one I hadn't seen before. Hale Family Trust, except it was my family's name, not that name. The account shell was there. The assets were titled to it, but the cash flow was still running through the original accounts. I clicked on Schedule Transfers. The list was longer than I expected. Automatic transfer, first of every month, $2,800 to an account with my brother's name on it, labeled Living Expenses. Automatic transfer, 15th of every month, $4,400 labeled Vehicle Installment, Elliott. Automatic transfer, first of every month, $700 to a credit card in my brother's name. Automatic transfer, quarterly, $4,500 labeled Business Investment, Elliott Consulting LLC, which I happen to know no longer existed as a functioning entity. I sat back in my chair. I'm a CPA. I spend my professional life looking at account statements. I know what it looks like when money moves with intention. This wasn't parents helping a son get back on his feet. This was a managed system, a permanent infrastructure of support. They weren't giving him a hand. They were building him a floor and insulating it so he'd never feel the ground. I looked at the checking account balance. It was substantial. But with these outflows, projected over the next 2 years, it would be significantly depleted by the time my parents needed care themselves. They were spending down their own security to maintain his. I thought about the line I had signed. Non-beneficiary party. I acknowledge this document. I have no claim. I opened the transfer management screen. I am not going to pretend I felt nothing. I felt something. Not rage, not satisfaction. I felt something colder and quieter than either of those. I felt the specific clarity that comes when a very complicated situation becomes suddenly simple. I was an authorized user. I had every right to pause transfers pending a review. I was also, professionally speaking, in a position to recognize that the current disbursement pattern represented a material risk to the account holder's long term financial stability. If a client had shown me this account, I would have told him to stop immediately. I clicked on the $2,000 transfer. I clicked pause. I confirmed. I clicked on the $1,400. Pause. Confirm. I went through all of them. Every scheduled disbursement, every automatic payment feeding my brother's life from my parents' savings. I paused them all. Then I went to the account memo field, the little text box banks have where you can leave a note. My father used to write things like Christmas or card repair in it. I clicked on it. I typed account under administrative review. All non-essential disbursements paused pending authorized party assessment. Then I logged out. I made a cup of tea. I drank it at the kitchen window looking at the parking lot below. A neighbor's dog was being walked by a kid who was also trying to text at the same time. It was a very ordinary Tuesday night. I went to bed. I slept better than I had in months. 26 days passed. I was just at work, sitting at work, eating a sad granola bar for lunch with a colleague who was stressed about a client audit. I went to the gym 3 times a week. I called my friend from college on a Sunday and we talked for an hour about nothing important. My life continued, quiet and organized, the way I had built it. On the 27th day, my phone buzzed while I was at my desk reviewing a depreciation schedule. It was a text from my mother. Iris, Elliot's rent payment bounced. He says the bank is saying there's a hold on something. Did you do something to the account? Your father is upset. I read it twice. Then I set my phone face down on my desk and finished the depreciation schedule. It took about 20 minutes. When I was done, I picked up my phone. I typed, I'm an authorized user on Dad's account. If there's a hold, the bank placed it. You should call them. I hit send. The response came in 40 seconds. Call me right now. I didn't call. 11 minutes later, my brother called. I let it ring. He called again. I let it ring. He called a third time, and I picked up because I knew from experience that Elliot would simply keep calling from different numbers if he had to until he got a response. What did you do? He said. Not a question, a statement. I said, hello, Elliot, don't. His voice was tight. Control, but only barely. The bank froze the account. Mom can't access anything. My rent is 3 days late. What did you do? I'm an authorized user, I said. If there's an issue with the account, that's a conversation for you and the bank. You did this. His voice cracked slightly on the last word. You're doing this on purpose. Elliot, I said, I think you should talk to Mom and Dad about where that money was coming from. Silence. Long enough that I thought the call had dropped. Then you're unbelievable. Quiet. Cold. Nothing like his usual bluster. You know that. You have always been like this. You think because you have your little career and your little apartment. I pay my own rent, I said. Another silence. I'm going to tell them what you did, he said. Okay, I said. I ended the call. I put my phone in my desk drawer. I went to the break room and got a glass of water. When I came back, I had 4 missed calls. 2 from my brother, 2 from a number I didn't recognize. An hour later, I had a voicemail from my mother that I listened to once and then deleted. Her voice was shaking, moving between anger and something closer to fear, which told me more about the state of things than anything she actually said. The account wasn't just frozen. The bank's internal system had flagged the administrative note I'd left and cross-referenced the recent change in disbursement patterns. It triggered a standard review. Standard reviews at that bank, per their published policy, ran 30 to 45 business days. For 30 to 45 business days, the outflows to my brother were stopped. I sat at my desk. I looked at my client's spreadsheet. I had work to do. The letter arrived on a Thursday. Thick envelope, cream-colored, the kind of stationery that signals a lawyer's office. My name and address were typed, not handwritten. I stood at my kitchen counter and opened it with a steak knife. A clean horizontal cut. It was from an attorney, not my parents' original family lawyer, who I'd known since I was a child, but someone new. A partner at a firm downtown. The letter was formal and precise. It said that in the course of cooperating with the bank's account review, the attorney had been asked to produce documentation related to the family trust. In reviewing his client files, he had discovered a document he was legally obligated to disclose to me as an interested party. He had attached a copy. I set the cover letter down. I picked up the attachment. It was a draft will. My father's name was at the top. It was dated 14 months before the notary meeting where I signed my name on the non-beneficiary line. I read the distribution clause. Assets to be divided equally between my son, Elliot, and my daughter Iris in equal shares of 50% each. I read it again. 14 months before they erased me, my father had wanted to split everything equally. The draft was unsigned. The attorney's letter was careful to say, this document carries no legal weight. It is provided for informational purposes only. But there was a second attachment. A photocopy of a yellow legal pad. My father's handwriting, slanted and slightly clamped, the way it always was. The way I recognized from the grocery lists he used to leave on the refrigerator. It was a note to the attorney, paper clipped to the draft will. I read it standing at my counter. I want it split. That's the fair thing. Elliot is in trouble, I know it. He's going to need guidance, not just money. Money without guidance is just postponing. Iris is the one who understands these things. If I split it and she's involved, she'll know what to do with her half, and she'll keep an eye on how his half gets managed. That's the only way any of it actually helps him. That's what I want. Split it equally. Iris will know what to do. I put the paper down. I stood there for a long time. When people talk about betrayal, they usually mean something sharp, a sudden wound. What I felt reading my father's note was different. It was a slow, spreading kind of grief. The kind that comes when you understand something you didn't fully understand before. My father had seen everything clearly. He had written it down. He had given the attorney a note expressing exactly what he wanted and exactly why. And then he had signed the other document anyway. He had let my mother override him. He had sat in that notary's office or whatever office they'd used and signed my name off the deed and signed the trust documents and let me be erased. Not because he didn't love me. Not because he thought I deserved less. He thought I was the only one who could actually help. And still, when my mother pressed, he didn't hold the line. I thought about the password on the yellow legal pad in my lockbox. You're the one I trust with this. He trusted me with the password. He trusted me with the password. He trusted me with the plan. He just didn't trust himself to fight for it. I don't know if I've forgiven him for that. I'm still figuring it out. What I know is that his note changed what I did next. The following week, I called the bank's fraud and compliance division, not the general customer service line, the direct number for their compliance team, which I knew from my work. I identified myself, I gave the account number, I said I was a party to the account and an authorized user and that I was escalating a concern. I told them I had reason to believe that funds had been disbursed over a period of years in a pattern consistent with financial exploitation of an elder account holder. I told them I had documentation suggesting the primary account holder's intent. The unsigned draft will, the note, did not align with the transfers being made. I told them I had questions about whether all documentation used to establish the family trust had been properly executed and by whom. The compliance officer's tone shifted. She asked me if I was available for a follow-up call with their investigations team. I said yes. I forwarded them my father's note and the draft will. 2 weeks later, I got a call from a senior investigator. He spoke carefully, in the deliberate way that people do when they're about to tell you something significant. He said the investigation had identified a pattern of transfers that lacked proper documentation. Disbursements classified as estate loans to my brother with no corresponding loan agreements, no repayment schedules, no paperwork of any kind. He said the total across 6 years was just over $119,000. He paused. Then he said that in reviewing the trust establishment documents, their forensic document team had flagged an inconsistency. The signature attributed to my father on the final trust agreement, the one that named my brother as sole beneficiary and removed me from the deed, did not match the signature samples they had on file. It didn't match the signature on the bank account applications from years prior. It didn't match the signature on my father's driver's license renewal. I sat down on my kitchen floor. I didn't plan to. My legs just stopped working. We believe, the investigator said, that the signature may not have been made by your father. I said, what does that mean, legally? He said it meant the trust document was potentially invalid. It meant the account was fully frozen pending a complete forensic audit. It meant the matter had been referred to the district attorney's office for review as a potential case of elder financial exploitation and document fraud. I said, I understand. I sat on the kitchen floor for a while after I hung up. The refrigerator hummed. Outside, I could hear a lawnmower somewhere down the street. Normal Saturday sounds. I thought about my mother, not with anger, with something heavier than anger. She hadn't just manipulated my father, she hadn't just pressured him until he gave in. She had decided he was taking too long to give in and had taken matters into her own hands. She had signed his name. She had done it cleanly, with intention, and walked out of that attorney's office carrying paperwork that erased me from my own family's history. I thought about my father sitting somewhere in that room, or not in the room, or knowing and saying nothing, and I couldn't decide which version was worse. My brother called 4 more times over the next 2 weeks from 3 different numbers. I didn't answer. The last time, he left a voicemail. His voice was different. Not the controlled anger from before, not the bluster. He sounded smaller. He said the bank had sent someone to the house. He said mom was talking to lawyers. He said everything was a mess and he didn't understand what was happening. He said, just call me back, Iris. Please, we're your family. I listened to it once, then I deleted it. He texted 3 days later from yet another number. He said mom had to move out of the house. He said the bank was taking it. He said, you did this to us. I looked at the text for a long time. Did I do this? I thought. Did I take out $118,000 with no paperwork? Did I sign someone else's name on a legal document? Did I build an entire financial life on the assumption that someone else would always catch me? I put my phone down. I didn't reply. I drove past the house once. I don't know why. It was a Sunday evening in late October, and I took a longer route home from the grocery store, and I told myself it was the traffic. But it wasn't. I turned onto my old street and slowed down. The lawn was longer than I'd ever seen it. My mother had maintained that lawn like a point of personal pride, edged, fertilized, seasonally planted. The rose bushes along the front walk were bare sticks now. The porch light was off. There were 2 cardboard boxes on the front steps, both wet from rain. It didn't look like a home. It looked like a place someone had left in a hurry. I sat there for maybe 2 minutes. Then I drove home. I ordered dinner. I watched a movie I'd been meaning to watch for months. I fell asleep on the couch before it ended and woke up to the credits. And I sat in the quiet of my apartment and felt something I hadn't expected. Relief. Not joy. Not satisfaction. Just a clean, uncomplicated sense that I was not responsible for any of what was happening in that house. I was sitting at work, eating a sad granola fix-it. I was not going to be handed a bill for something I hadn't spent. I was not going to be told I was too cold, too independent, too responsible, as though those were character flaws instead of the things that had kept me standing while everyone else slowly fell. People talk about closure like it's a door you close. I don't think that's what it is. I think it's more like putting something down that you've been carrying so long you forgot you were carrying it. I don't know the full legal outcome of what happened to my mother. I know the trust was declared invalid. I know the house was seized by the bank to offset the undocumented debt. I know my brother sold his car. I saw it briefly on a resale site, significantly underpriced. And I knew without knowing that it was his. The same way I knew his haircut in that meeting room meant he'd been expecting good news. I didn't get anything. When the invalid trust was unwound and the debts were settled, there was nothing left. The $118,000 gone. The house gone. The savings, the investment portfolio, absorbed into the collection of years of mismanagement. I was sitting at work, eating a sad Ranila Pavulan, the one who'd known our family for years. He said he was sorry for the way things had gone. He said he thought I should know that my father had come to him once, alone, and asked whether there was a way to change the trust documents back. He said my father had seemed afraid. He said my father had ultimately not moved forward. I wrote back a single line, "Thank you for telling me." Then I closed the email and I didn't open it again. My father trusted me with the password. He told me I was the smart one, the responsible one, the one who would know what to do. He was right. He just didn't know what he was right about. He thought knowing what to do meant managing the fallout, absorbing the consequences, being the person who cleaned up after everyone else the way I'd been cleaning up since I was old enough to be useful. He thought I'd take my half of the estate and quietly apply it to the mess my brother had made of his, and everyone would go on, and nothing would really change except the numbers. But knowing what to do meant something different to me. It meant stopping. It meant putting down a weight I had been handed before I was old enough to ask whether I wanted it. I'm 32 years old. I have a two-bedroom apartment in Columbus. I have a career I built myself and savings I earned, and a Sunday morning routine that no one can interrupt with a crisis that isn't mine. My phone is quiet in the way that phones are quiet when no one is calling to need something from you. I spent a long time being the responsible one. Being responsible for myself is something else entirely. It's lighter, it fits better. My mother used to say the family came first. She meant that I came last. I'm not angry about it anymore. I'm just done. That's the thing she never understood about me. That silence isn't the same as accepting. Sometimes silence is a strategy. Sometimes it's the sound of someone who has already decided. I decided. And for the first time in my life, that decision belonged only to me.